Alrighty, my name is Ryan Curran, and I will be doing my presentation on educational technology for week 3. We'll be talking about tools for educational technology that other teachers can use. So we'll be talking about Prezi, Quizlet, Google Classroom, Kahoot, Blooket, Peer Deck, and MyFitnessPal. So first we'll start with Prezi. Prezi is an alternative source of making a presentation. So imagine PowerPoint, but it's a little bit more modernized and a little bit less stagnant. So Prezi is really good for, the straightforward making a presentation. If you want it to be a bit more engaging, have more movement to the visuals, it can keep people engaged a little bit better. For example, there's more animations that go on with it that comes standard. I like Prezi too because it's really easy to use. It kind of sets your presentations apart. And it's good for not only school, but a lot of businesses, and students will use it too. So you can actually teach students how to use it. It's available to anyone who has internet. And as far as I remember, last time I used it, you don't need to download any specific software. You can do it online if that hasn't changed. Okay, next I'll talk about Quizlet. So Quizlet, it's used for studying generally. My favorite thing that Quizlet does is the flashcards that you can build, and you can use them to test out students or get students prepared for summative or formative assessments by using the flashcards. It's not the most entertaining in terms of compared to some of the games that students might use, but there is game-based learning. There's student management, and there's an app which is good. And my favorite thing though is to be using the content that involves flashcards and actual quizzing to be prepared for a real quiz or test. Next we'll talk about Google Classroom. Google Classroom, I'm pretty sure all of us are familiar with already. And Google Classroom is a way for students to be able to log into different classes, all from one screen, I guess you could call it. Google Classroom, I worked with students from ages first grade, from grades 1 to grade 5, and they were even able to figure out Google Classroom pretty well. So it looks a little complex at first, but then there's this pretty easy learning curve. So it's a way to access different classes and different assignments. And the great thing is, as a teacher, you can post to Google Classroom, and then all of your students have access to anything that you've posted. So it's more of a platform for you to use to teach a class or to list homework or assignments. Okay, next we'll talk about Kahoot. This is a really popular one. Kahoot's good. It's a game. All your students in your class can play it at one time. You can, as shown in the photo here, you see it says who invented the light bulb, has a photo, and then there's 4 answers. So you can click on who you want. And as you can imagine with Kahoot, you can do this with any subject. So if you're teaching math, you can put an equation on the question section, and then you can have 4 answers, and you can pick how much time you want to give. So a longer equation, a longer amount of time. If it's something like 2 plus 2, and you're working with kindergartners, give them a little bit of time to count on their fingers. But you can even use it for stuff like physical education and art. So it's a pretty straightforward tool, but it's good and it's competitive with students. Blooket. So I like Blooket a lot. I was introduced to Blooket after I was introduced to Kahoot, and Blooket is a game version of what Kahoot would be. Similarly, they are different, but as you can see in the photo, there's a list of about 9 different games. There's actually more that you can choose from, but Blooket is good because you can pick different games, and as you're going throughout the games, you're asked questions. So rather than just having a question and then an answer format, you get to venture into these games while you're answering questions and asking questions and answering them, and then you earn points and you get little avatars, and it's fun because you can rank against your classmates. So Blooket's actually really effective. Pear Deck, I just learned about this one recently. Pear Deck is a way for students to interact with slides that you're presenting. So if you're working on Google Classroom, they can actually interact with you and get onto the slides with you and work with you on these different slides. So students will join your Google Classroom presentation and they participate with what you're doing. And then there's different pair decks that they can click on and you can work together, or they can work separately, but it's a good way to make sure that your students are 100% participating. Last thing is MyFitnessPal. This is not going to be common for schools, but I'm doing it as a PE teacher. So MyFitnessPal would be useful for some physical educators. It'd also be useful for nutrition classes and higher level students that are more interested in tracking what they're eating and how many steps they're getting throughout the day. So if you're teaching a fitness class or a nutrition class, or if you're working with athletes, this might be something to use as a tool. Obviously, it would have to be older students because it's a little bit more in depth, but I think something like this actually might be a good tool in schools, especially because most students nowadays have a smartphone to use it on. And if they didn't, you could find an alternative. So how would these tools enhance instructional practices? I think I went over that a bit with each slide, but each one of them is, I believe, diverse. They do similar things. They help teach and they help students learn, but they do it in different ways. And some are basic, and sometimes the basics are the right way to go in classes, and sometimes you need to teach in a way that's going to captivate the learners a little bit more, depending on the age or the behavioral level, or how much stagnant work. If you've been doing a lot of lectures, you might want to do something a little bit more entertaining and visually stimulating. So in terms of the ISTE educator standards, I believe it meets standard 2.4, which is a collaborator. So educators collaborating with students is what I really noticed with some of these presentations, especially the one where the students can go into the teacher's presentation peer book and engage. That's a great way to collaborate with students. And then 2.6 is a facilitator. So educators facilitating learning with technology to support students and achievement. I feel like that kind of goes without saying for most of these. And then for the ISTE for students 1.4, I looked at innovative designer because students will be using a variety of technology. So I think that fits there well. And then 1.2, a digital citizen. Students understand the importance of tech. And I think digital citizen fits because students can understand how important technology is with learning. And that's a reflection on later on in life what technology can be used in to make them a digital citizen. So that's my presentation. Once again, my name is Ryan Curran. And that's it.